WMUZ 103.5 The Light, Detroit made Bible strong. It is another Saturday morning, and it is the Home and Health Show, and I am your host, Michael Thomas McIntyre, but you can call me Mac. I do the afternoon show here from 4 to 7 during the week, and it is a privilege to be able to come in here and speak to you guys on Saturday and bring you some terrific people in our community that are here to help you heal, to help you feel better, to get you balanced, and to put you where you need to be to do God's work, to serve Him in whatever facet of your life that you're doing right now. And I'm so happy to have Dave and Julie from the Brain Life Center joining me on the program today. I've pretty much known these guys since I got to the radio station about 2.5 years ago. They are terrific people, and they have an awesome product and an opportunity for you to really start to feel great in your life. Dave, Julie, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
It is nice to be here with you.
It is an exciting time, I think, because technology has done so much over the last 10, 15 years to help people with a variety of things that are going on. Anxiety, sleep deprivation, numerous things that affect our brains, and you guys are the experts in this, and you are on the cutting edge of a technology that I can attest to that helped me tremendously with my anxiety and my depression issues. And I want you to talk about Brain Life Center, the technology, and how it works.
You go ahead, Dave.
Well, first of all, it's a natural approach. We use a technology that uses read-only sensors. They're proprietary, but just imagine this. When you're alive, your brain is functioning. It's emitting a certain electromagnetic wave that's very readable, and it has been for many, many years. But with computer technology and a lot of the breakthroughs they now have in neuroscience, they are finding that they can take this data that the brain's emitting, and you can translate it, send it back to the brain in a mirror effect. When the brain hears itself properly in the correct locations, we know that it can be quite life-changing.
So in layman's terms, and again, I'm approaching this as a very a guy who wants to get educated. Basically, if I'm hearing you say what you're saying is our brains are constantly firing off different signals.
That's right.
And when those signals get mixed up, that can begin to cause issues in our bodies, where with you guys, you have the technology, and correct me if I'm wrong, to correct the way it's firing in your brain.
Can I explain a little bit what happens with people is life happens, and life is filled with trauma, and trauma could be real, perceived, imagined, and it's still trauma to the brain. So what happens with the frequencies of the brain sometimes when trauma occurs is those frequencies will go to the area where the trauma has happened and heal that area, and it won't always redistribute. So now those frequencies are out of balance. That lack of balance can create a stuck state for the mind. So for the person, they might be experiencing symptoms like a lack of sleep or anxiety or, sadness or many focus issues. Right. Many, we see people for so many different things. So when the brain sees itself, as David described, just through an auditory mirror, which is headphones that you listen to your brain live. It's like holding a mirror up to the brain so it can see those imbalances. And then the brain does the work. It itself will start to correct and self-regulate. And as it does, people will say, oh, I'm sleeping better. I feel more relaxed. I'm able to respond instead of react to life situations. And they're able to move forward in a much healthier way in their life.
And the brain is designed by God to be able to correct itself.
That's right. And imagine this. It's incredibly common out there for people to not be sleeping properly. And when you're not sleeping properly, if you're not getting deep, restful sleep, going through the proper sleep cycles, waking rested, then you are not functioning on a very high level. And as you know, and I know, Chris Stevenson went through this for sleep. Bob Duco went through this for sleep. That's been, I think, 7-8 years ago. When you start sleeping properly, to wake rested, actually have motivation in the morning like few people realize they should have.
Right.
And then to actually have focused energy, a very calm sense of energy throughout the day, It is amazing what a difference that makes in relationships with family, certainly in your work environment,
Sure.
Your productivity, things like that. It's quite remarkable.
Talk about an assessment for people that are hearing this information, for people that are going, okay, I kind of understand what you're saying, but I need to feel this. I need to see this. I need to experience this. Talk about what an assessment process is like. What are you guys doing?
And this is the best way for people to really understand what we do, because I know when we share this with people, it's hard to wrap your brain around. It's a little bit like, what are they talking about? So here's what the assessment is for. People come in for the assessment. We have a beautiful office. We have a wonderful team, and we're going to put them in the most comfortable chair. A lot of clients want to buy our chair from us, but we don't sell chairs.
It's fantastic.
It is. And they get in that comfortable chair, and we're going to put sensors with conductivity paste on them on their head into different locations to read the frequencies of the brain. It takes about 45 minutes. And then after that, we're going to give them a sample. They're going to get an opportunity to hear what their brain sounds like in real time, which is what the process will look like if they decide to move forward with it. And then they're going to meet with one of our guidance technologists, or it could be Dave or I, and we're going to sit down and go over the results of all that data that we collected, and we're going to answer all their questions. So now they're going to have met our team, they're going to have experienced the technology, they're going to know what we're about, and they're going to understand that this is a scientific process that gives them an opportunity to get some help.
Who are you helping? Are you helping people with traumatic brain injuries? Are you helping people
Yes.
that are in a severe state of depression and anxiety? Or are you
Yes.
helping everyday people who are having a tough time sleeping and don't know why, and have decided to go to their doctor, and maybe they're on some prescriptions that they're not really excited about, but they're getting sleep, and we know where that can go. We've got an opioid addiction in this country that is beyond, I think, anybody's understanding. Are you helping all these people? Can you get them in at any level, really, of not feeling balanced?
Yes. Well, just picture this. We kind of jokingly say around Brain Life Center, if you have a brain, it's definitely worth looking into this technology. But
Okay.
I will say that because we work with a range of people. Now, we've helped more people with sleep and sleep disorders and just general sleep issues than anybody else, because we had a lot of early success in sleep. And so people heard about it. So we've helped thousands and thousands of people sleep properly. But we've also helped people with, like you say, traumatic brain injuries. We've helped a lot of veterans with post-traumatic stress, or a set of symptoms that they consider post-traumatic stress disorder. What's interesting is when they come to us, in some cases, they've been dealing with these problems for 40-some years. And we worked with a Vietnam veteran who had been in and out of the VA, had really, life had fallen apart for this guy. He comes to us and he sees a major turnaround in a very short amount of time. He was telling us that he got off a lot of medications, things like that.
That's amazing.
But that's after 40 years. People
that's
don't have to
amazing.
suffer like that today, right? This is something relatively new. We've been doing it for about 10 years in the Detroit area, but it kills us that we see people out there. They don't know this exists, and they're out there suffering day to day.
Needlessly.
It's totally
Needlessly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Speaking of suffering, Julie, both of your kids had some issues, some concentration issues, some focus issues, some anxiety issues. Take the next minute or so and kind of tell us what's going on. And I know we're going to hear from your daughter here in a moment, but set the story up so after we hear from your daughter, we can come back and kind of really clarify where they were and where they are now.
Okay. So I'll start with my son, Sean. I have 3 kids, but at the time I was introduced to this technology 10 years ago, my son was 19, and he really did struggle. I was told he had ADD, and we really didn't do well with the medication. He didn't like it, and I didn't like it. So I homeschooled him for a while. Then he went off to high school, and he went off to college. Well, in college, he didn't do very well. He really failed. And he came home feeling pretty down about himself because he's a great kid, great morals. Went to college, was living in our basement, was not motivated to do anything, and that is the moment in time that I was introduced to this technology.
Well, I want to hear more about his story. We're going to hear from your daughter right now. She had some anxiety issues. After we hear from her, let's come back. We'll continue our story a little bit in just a moment. So let's check out, what's your daughter's first name?
Kendra.
Here's what Kendra has to say on WMUZ 103.5 The Light, Detroit Made, Bible Strong. This is the Home and Health Show.
Heard about the Brain Life Center. And at that time, I was struggling with a lot of anxiety to the point where I was having panic attacks, even up to once a week for a while. And it just seemed like it was slowly strangling my life. I was at a point where I was getting ready to go away to college, and I needed to start working full-time and go to college, and it just seemed like way too much to handle at the time. It seemed like I had way too many big decisions to make, and that would just throw me into a mode of high anxiety and then ultimately a panic attack. So that was what I was struggling with at the time. And I felt like I was ready to do anything, even medication. I just needed some kind of relief. So I talked to my mother, and she thought, we should do this first before we go the medication route, just as a last try, because I had done counseling and all different other kinds of things. And I have not had one panic attack since I did my intensive. If anybody out there is struggling with anxiety or panic attacks, they understand how crippling that can be, and that is really something that has just changed my life. I worked 72 hours this past week. I work 2 full-time jobs, basically, and I'm going to school in the fall, and I just feel like my general anxiety has gone down, but the panic attacks being gone is really the biggest thing for me. And one of the things that was absolutely just blew my mind about this technology is I had no idea I had an issue with memory until after I had gone through my intensive. Because after I'd gone through my intensive, I started working as a server, and I just started recognizing how much specific information I was retaining that I had never been able to do before. I always thought I was someone who had to write everything down in specifics, and just a bad test taker is what they'll tell you in school, and I had to study extra hard compared to other kids, and I thought that was just something I was going to have to accept about my life. And even to this day, my memory is sharp as a tack. It feels like I almost put glasses on for the first time. It was like, is this what normal people can retain? I was just absolutely blown away that I had no idea that I had that issue until it was solved.
Man, I'll tell you what, I can relate to every single thing that Kendra was saying as a person who suffers from anxiety and panic attacks. It is a scary situation to be in. Friend, if you are out there this afternoon and that story from Kendra is hitting your heart and you're going, I didn't know there was anybody else out there like me, there's hope, there's help. Dave, tell people what they can do.
Well, Julie and we've got a team assembled at Brain Life Center. If you want to give us a call, we're here to take questions. We know that this sparks a lot of questions. Give us a call at 248-922-9490, 248-922-9490, and let us help you kind of get to the next step.
All right, more of the Home and Health Show coming up in just a moment. Again, 248-922-9490. Dave and Julie from the Brain Life Center joining me this morning on WMUZ 103.5 The Light, Detroit Made, Bible Strong. WMUZ 103.5 The Light, Detroit Made, Bible Strong. Thank you for rejoining the program. Dave and Julie from Brain Life Center have been so gracious to not only support this show, but to be a guest with us today. Again, they are doing business right now. Give a call, 248-922-9490. I think if you stay with us for the rest of the hour, you're going to find out there is a whole lot of terrific information for you as far as getting your life balanced and getting back in order. We were talking to Julie a little bit before we went to break about her son and her daughter. You heard from Kendra, but I really want you to clarify what happened with your son, because I think there are so many parents out there that struggle with kids who have focus and concentration issues, and somebody from the school sends a note home that says, well, we think your child's ADD. We think you should probably take your child to the doctor. And the parents don't know. They become panic-stricken, so they follow the formula. They bring somebody in to watch your child and supervise your child during the day for a week or whatever. The only reason I know this is because it happened to my son, Jack, who is not ADD or ADHD at all.
Right.
But I was scared, and my wife was scared as a parent.
It's tough.
So talk about your son and what eventually happened.
Well, at 19, he's home. He's unmotivated. He's feeling bad about himself. He's thinking something's wrong with him, that he can't do school like the people around him. And we're realizing as parents, this young man has got to launch from this home and have a career and a life, right? So we can't let him just live in the basement. And it was right then that I got introduced to this technology. So we put him through the process. He was one of our very first clients. And well, he was just my son, but he was the first experience for me. And about a month later, My son, and if you're a parent and you have a child like this, you understand what a big deal this is. He gets on the phone on his own initiative and gets himself back in school. He gets himself on the phone and gets himself a car. Young people who struggle with this kind of focus, as a parent, you're always trying to find that line between doing it for them, and forcing them to do it and being frustrated that they're not. And all of a sudden, my son is motivated, moving forward. He got into a university. He finished college. He has a phenomenal job, a wonderful wife. He is now 29, and he's incredibly successful, happy. They love him. He's been promoted several times. And honestly, when we were looking at our situation when he was 19, we were questioning, what is his life going to look like? If something doesn't change, it's not going to be a pretty picture. So I feel like his future, the trajectory of his future shifted, and his life went uphill from there.
When those early symptoms started, was he diagnosed through a standard medical procedure, or were you just seeing changes in symptoms and you were, as a parent, going, I don't know what to do, and then this technology appeared in your life? Or had he gone through a process of medical attention first, and then they gave you their idea of maybe what was going on, and then you go, wait a minute, now what?
Well, the teacher told me when he was in first grade that she thought he had ADD, and that he was smart, but she wasn't going to be able to take him as far as he could go, and he was kind of bored because he's intelligent, but she can't give him the attention needed because he can't stay with her.
Stigmatized.
Yeah.
Immediately stigmatized, and has to carry this sign between his shoulders that say, child with learning disability. And he didn't have one.
Well, I don't know if he did or not, because what I did is I started researching what that meant, and I learned a lot about it, and I decided to homeschool him. And so we did that. But I will tell you, as his teacher, it was hard to keep him on track.
Yeah.
So I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose. I don't know. I just know that he did struggle with focus. He struggled with procrastination. He struggled with staying on task, but he was smart enough to do it all. He just couldn't get himself to do it.
Yeah.
And it was rough to keep him on task, and it's not anymore.
When he was in the process of this technology, when did you begin to see changes in his behavioral pattern? Was it after 5 days? Was it after 6 weeks? Tell me the story of when you started to see the light and the cloud drift and the light come down on him again. We started seeing changes in the behavior in about 5 or 6 weeks. And I can tell you that. Wow.
Yeah, he didn't.
5 or 6 weeks, and this had been something that had been a struggle since first grade.
Right.
He's now 19, and
right.
5 or 6 weeks later, you're seeing the clouds part and the sun begin to come out.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And he was really relieved when he came in for the assessment, because what he recognized is this was not his fault. See, these young people, they feel something's wrong with me. He just had some obstacles that we needed to remove.
Man, I'm telling you, you hit something major right there. For all the people that I know that have these types of issues, concentration issues, depression issues, whatever it is that's going on, that your brain is not firing correctly, there is an element of guilt that are in most of the people that I know. And the reason I know is because I've been down this road. I've been down the road of depression and anxiety and lack of focus and having a tough time sleeping. And you keep this to yourself because you think you're going nuts.
Right. It's an awful feeling. It's heavy.
It's isolating. Yeah. It's beyond having a 60-pound stone between your shoulders. It's isolation because you feel like you are not a normal person. And for the people listening to this show that are either struggling with that thought themselves or you're seeing that in your child, that's why these two people are on this radio show today, to tell you that there's hope, to tell you that there's technology out there that can make an amazing change in your life or in somebody that you love. Dave, you too have an interesting story about your son. I'd like you to share that, as long as we're having the family good time feel. Let's keep it going, man.
Well, I tell you, I love hearing Julie's story. So for people that don't know, she's my sister.
Right.
The reason we're doing this, and we've been doing this is our 10th year in the Detroit area. It's because of the impact it had on our families. So when she's talking about Sean and Kenda, she's talking about my nephew and my niece, and I saw the massive shift. That led me to bring one of my sons. It's interesting, the timing involved, but what was interesting for me, so I have 4 sons. Okay, Julie knows them all quite well. Mm-hmm. My oldest actually sustained a couple of brain injuries. This happened within about a year and a half. The first one was a car accident. The second, and there were some issues, that first one, but he's okay, right? The second one was kind of unique. He got out of his car one night to move a tree out of the road. It was still connected at the roots. A woman falls asleep at the wheel. She's coming the opposite direction. She hits the tree. The tree swings like a bat, hits him in the head.
Cracks him in the noggin.
They end up, I guess he went into the ditch. He doesn't remember this.
It catapulted him from the impact of the tree hitting him.
From the impact of the tree.
It launched him into a ditch.
Yeah. And he wakes up in the emergency with me and his mom, right?
Wow.
And it didn't look good. Well, from that point forward, he's having some issues with speech. Now, what was interesting is it was just a matter of flowing. He couldn't quite flow. So if he used to talk with us and you'd get a nice flow going, but people take for granted sometimes when you're talking to somebody, it's not quite flowing. It can be very frustrating. And I think it kind of led to a little bit of anger management. But here's what's interesting. I don't know which came first, but I watched it start to spiral. He spiraled into sleep problems. He wasn't sleeping. He ended up having a lot of anxiety. Then he ends up with a lot of, he starts having panic attacks.
Oh.
He ends up on medications.
Oh, man.
The doctors are giving him antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, sleep medication, pain medication. It was bad. And
so he's a kid and he's walking around with a briefcase full of medicine.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's not helping.
No.
I mean, we're watching our kid become dependent, right?
Yeah.
And
it
did
was
this
a
go
scary
on?
thing.
Wasn't it like a year? Did this go on?
Yeah.
I mean, it went on for a long time.
Wow.
This spiral of
And
mess.
yeah, if you're a parent, you know what a panic situation
killing
is.
you. Yeah,
It's
man.
absolutely
It's so
throwing
painful.
your life upside down.
Yeah.
So nevertheless, I get him to do this technology, right? And it was such a big deal to try to get him just to sit in the chair. But I can tell you that in a very short amount of time, in fact, it was about the third session that he started noticing some improvements, and he went from sort of angry about even being there to, okay, this could be helping, right? Within weeks, we're starting to notice his speech pattern coming back to old Jacob. Within months, we had Jacob back. And I mean, it's years later. He's in his 30s now. He's doing fantastic. I mean, literally, like Julie said, the trajectory of his life shifted. And it could have been dependency. Instead, he's very successful. He's just a great man.
Wow.
He runs his own business. He's amazing.
What an unbelievable story. Friends, I hope you're feeling the heart of these people in here today as they're sharing some pretty intimate details of their personal life. But I hope you're seeing that it is a roadmap to doing what they're doing now. And listen, if you're being honest with yourself, there are many of you in this audience listening right now that have all of these symptoms, and it's not your fault. The most interesting thing about this is the technology, because this is not a technology that is force-fed down our throats visually every 5 minutes on television like the big pharmaceutical companies are doing. Take this and you'll get better. Take this and you'll get better. If you just do this, you'll feel better. Oh, you're sleepy? Take this. Oh, you're anxious? Take this. But remember, it'll destroy your liver and your kidneys and your blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I'd rather be sick.
Right.
So a technology like you have, which is non-invasive, which doesn't involve medication, is an important message to tell to as many people as we can. But I think we have to educate them on the technology. Folks, I would fall asleep in that chair. I would fall asleep.
Yeah,
and
it's very comfortable.
And it became a release of tension. It became the first thing I noticed, because I had control of my anxiety with medication, the Lexapro. I was more concerned with the focus and the sharpness in terms of my job, because I was new here to the team. I was in a new environment. I just moved 500 miles away from Nashville. I had every symptom that a lot of people get that bring on an anxious situation or an inability to stay focused. And it was within a couple of days, and I can only describe it as being a sharpness in my mind that I was unaware that I had. It just within a couple days, it was like it was an alertness. Not like I woke up and I was like hyper and like, running and going. It was just this, there was something that hadn't been in my head that was suddenly turned on.
Yeah.
And it didn't make me see any better or hear any better or speak any clearer, or there was just an alertness it's hard to describe, but when you get it, and you know it.
Yeah.
And when that light turned on, or that signal was being read the right way in my brain, everything else that came behind it started to fall. The anxiousness started to drop. The sweaty palms went away. The inability to kind of relax. It was always, I always thought of myself as a room observer, which I am. I talk on the radio, but I'm a pretty introverted person away from what I do here. I'm really an observer.
Yes.
And I noticed that, all these things started to become more focused, and I wasn't worried, and I wasn't like, oh man, let's see, I got 20 minutes before I go do this. I feel the pain, and do I have liver cancer? Just all these strange things that people that suffer from this stuff put their minds through unnecessarily. And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. And it started with that clarity.
Yeah.
And it's a feeling that when you get it, and when you have experienced many of the things symptomatically that we're talking about today, when you get that, whatever it is, through this therapy and being in that chair and giving yourself an attitude of positivity when you go in and saying, this is going to work. This is it. Because I know many of you have reached the end of the road. You don't want to be on medication. I know that. But when you allow yourself to go in there, relax, trust, believe, and that magic moment happens, it is worth, there isn't a dollar amount that you can put on that. Start feeling great going into 2019. This is your time. This is your moment, and these are your people. This is Brain Life Center, 248-922-9490.